Welcome to The Explainer. So, what actually happens in the exact moment you die? Look, we're not talking about religion or spiritual assumptions today. We're looking strictly at the scientific record, especially when it comes to what happens inside your brain. And, well, the answer is likely way more startling and, quite frankly, way more beautiful than you might think. Let's look at the data. Okay, let's dive into this. When we talk about death, the popular image is usually just that classic movie scene, right? A heart monitor going flat, a long beep, and that's it. Game over. But biologically and chemically speaking, that final heartbeat is actually just the start of a massive, incredibly complex chain reaction inside your body. First up, let's talk about the brain. In the final moments of life, your brain basically unleashes this massive, almost instantaneous flood of chemicals. We're talking endorphins, DMT, and serotonin all hitting your system at exactly the same time. This massive chemical dump is exactly why people who have had near-death experiences so often report feeling this overwhelming peace or seeing bright lights or feeling like they're floating. You know, it isn't magic, it is pure measurable chemistry. But then, something incredibly strange happens. When that heart monitor flatlines, you'd logically think the brain just powers down immediately, right? Like a computer just being unplugged from the wall. But amazingly, for about 20 to 30 seconds after clinical death, your brain does not shut down. Actually, scratch that. It doesn't just stay on. Running on its final reserves of cellular energy, it actually becomes intensely active. So, 30 seconds. That is the absolutely crucial point to remember here. Back in 2022, scientists accidentally recorded the brain activity of an 87-year-old man at the exact moment he passed away. Total accident, by the way. But what they found during those 30 seconds of heightened brain activity completely shocked the scientific community. The recordings revealed this immense, massive spike in gamma wave activity compared to normal baseline levels. Now, gamma waves, those are the specific type of brain waves associated with memory retrieval and dreaming. During this 30-second window right after death, this patient's brain spiked to unprecedented levels of activity that likely hadn't been seen in years. So what does this all mean? Well, scientists believe this intense gamma spike is the brain literally playing back your entire life, every core memory, every major moment, every person you ever loved, all firing off rapidly in those final 30 seconds. That famous phenomenon of your life flashing before your eyes, it's not just a poetic metaphor, it's a strictly neurological, measurable event happening right as the heart stops. Okay, let's move to the physical body and see how this builds. Once that incredibly active neurological window closes, the physical breakdown begins almost immediately. Within minutes, deprived of oxygen, your cells begin a clinical process called apoptosis. This is literally cellular self-destruction. It's just an automatic physical response to the loss of oxygen flow. Following apoptosis, there's a very predictable sequence of physical changes that occurs over the next few hours. First, your muscles contract one final time, which, by the way, is why sometimes dead bodies appear to move or make sounds. Within hours, your core temperature drops rapidly. Without a beating heart to pump it, your blood begins to pool at the lowest points of your body, purely due to gravity. And finally, the bacteria in your gut, which is no longer contained by a living immune system, just begins to spread outward. So just to anchor our understanding, let's look at the timeline we've just covered. At 0 seconds, the heart stops. For the next 30 seconds, we see that massive gamma wave spike and memory playback in the brain. Within minutes, cellular apoptosis begins. And over the next few hours, the physical body breaks down, the temperature drops, and gravity takes over. That is the biological timeline. But here is where our explainer takes a kind of fascinating turn. We need to just slow down for a second and think about this. Your living body, right now as you're listening to this, runs on about 100 watts of electrical energy. I mean, that is what keeps your heart beating, your brain firing, and your muscles moving. When you die, where does that energy go? Because the one thing we know for sure from physics is that it cannot simply vanish. And the reason we know that is due to one of the absolutely most fundamental laws of our universe. The law of conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. It's just an impartial thermodynamic reality. The human energy that was powering your physical form has to go somewhere. Just consider the sheer scale of this contrast. You go from the human body, which is this highly localized, contained 100 watts of electrical energy, to inevitably transitioning into the surrounding environment. The boundary of you just drops, and your localized energy disperses outward. It's a dramatic shift from the microscale of a single human being to the macroscale of infinite energy distribution. And this actually brings us to some incredibly high-level scientific theory. Sir Roger Penrose, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics back in 2020, has proposed that consciousness itself might actually exist at the quantum level. The theory here is that the quantum information that essentially makes up you doesn't get destroyed when the biological body dies. Instead, it just gets distributed out into the universe. And hey, this applies to your physical matter too. Think about this. Every single atom that makes up your body right now has to go on to become part of something else. The carbon in your cells was originally forged inside a star. The iron in your blood was created in a supernova. And when you die, those atoms go right back into the universal ecosystem. They return to the Earth, they become part of a tree, they wash into an ocean, or maybe, eventually, they become part of another star. It is the ultimate atomic recycling. When you really look at the entirety of the scientific data, from the chemical floods in the brain to the 30 seconds of intense gamma spikes playing back your memories, all the way down to the strict laws of thermodynamics, it all points to one incredibly profound reality. You don't disappear, you just change form. Death, scientifically speaking, is simply a continuous transformation of matter and energy. We've looked at the intense brain activity, the rapid chemical reactions, the cellular breakdown, and the fundamental laws of physics that govern our life force. The scientific record gives us this mesmerizing, purely data-driven picture of our final moments and what happens to our physical components next. So I will leave you with this to ponder. Based on the scientific reality we've explored today, what do you think happens after we die? I hope this explainer sparked your curiosity and gave you a brand new perspective on our existence. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the data, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.